just going to bring up all the comments. And I know this is like the last of the extra, extra. And so there may or may not be as many people tuning in. Let me bring the comments up here, which means usually there's a period where I can see the sound. And okay, good. Now we're all good to go. Okay, yeah, we have a few more people joining in. So that's great. Let everyone settle in. You can mute yourself as you're on Zoom. If you're joining in Facebook Live, you can say hi as you're hopping on for the very last session. Good morning to Nina. Good morning, everyone over in the Zoom area. And you can always ask any questions you might have anywhere as well. Oh, I don't think I've turned it on speaker view. Looks, oh no, I think it's okay. All right, it was just the sound coming in. Sometimes the view happens. So here we are. You guys have made it through these 5 to 8 days, depending on what you've attended, if you've come to the bonus sessions. And we had the bonus session on Saturday where we talked about who and the role of identity. And yesterday we had a great Q&A and just a chance to kind of converse and discuss things a little bit. And then today we're looking at the topic of why not. And this is to address some of the obstacles and how you can overcome obstacles, as well as some limiting beliefs around meditation practice, but also in your life and how meditation can help with that too. We're looking a little more at the practical aspect and the practice itself, because that's a big focus of this retreat, as I'm sure you've gathered. And I enjoyed hearing from everyone yesterday in the Q&A and some of the feedback and comments. I think it was, I don't know, was it Opal or Rosalind who mentioned the having the building blocks and how important that can be. And I find it strange, I guess, that isn't often taught when we're talking about making a big change in our lives or making a new habit. People kind of skip how to integrate it. And I spent a lot of time on how to integrate it, both in this retreat and in my 6-week program too. So I'll actually be screen sharing in a moment from a page of the workbook with my 6-week program, Calm Mind, Clear Heart, where we go into some of the obstacles. So it's awesome. First of all, thank you everyone for showing up. I got to say that now before I forget, because I am grateful that you're here and that you've been able to commit to showing up for the retreat and showing up for yourself and being present and making this space. And one other little bits of admin before I get started is I will have these videos available through the Facebook group until Thursday, and then I will take them down on Thursday. I do go live every week on Thursday morning, so I'll be taking them down right after I go live. And the 6-week course that I've mentioned, my full program, Calm Mind, Clear Heart, is also accepting patients until then too. So if you want to join up, now is the time. I try to run the retreat and the program. In my mind, I want to run it 3, maybe 4 times a year, once a season. Summer, I often skip because it's a busy time, but we'll see how locked down we all are this summer. Hopefully not too locked down, but that makes it easier to do the retreats and things like consistent programs. So yeah, that's, I think, it for the admin. Now, as you come and show up, as you try to make a consistent practice and you start to show up for yourself more and be in meditation, eventually, if you haven't already, even in this week together, you will likely encounter what we call the moment of no, or the big no, which is the resistance that can arise in meditation. And there's another book I like, which I'll show you. It's a good one, especially if you're newer to meditation, called Just Sit. And they have a funny little picture that I just wanted to show about the moment of no. And so this is dealing with resistance. And in many ways, the resistance is is there and happening all the time. We all have our own unique strategies of resistance, and often not just one, it's multi-layered. But when we sit down in meditation, we become aware of all of these things that are lingering below the surface and the ways in which we might be resisting the present moment. And the resistance, I spoke yesterday about how I love meditation practice because it is very much training ground. It is practice. It is this ability, this space we create to practice things in our lives. And so, similarly, we get to experience our own resistance, our own limiting beliefs, and we have an opportunity to practice how we work with them and how we relate to them. So, this is in some ways, what I'm talking about today is in some ways purely practical about integrating your practice, how to deal with some common things like restlessness and sleepiness, and boredom, things like that. But then it's also really kind of this little portal to much deeper things that can be happening in the subconscious or deeper parts of who you are as well. So the moment of no, what do you do? Have you, first of all, I'm curious from people who are here showing up live or in the watch party or replay, have you noticed this moment of no? Have you sat down to meditate and been like, oh, I don't want to do this, or you have some kind of resistance that you encounter? Have you noticed that? And I know there's a little delay usually with the chat piece on Facebook, but if you've noticed this moment of no, let me know if you've already started to see that, or if you've even seen some obstacles, some practical sides of obstacles come up. In more traditional Buddhist, I'll keep talking and then I'll go back to that, by the way, so feel free to write in. In more traditional Buddhist roots of meditation, we talk about these things as the hindrances. And these are the things that can get in the way. And a lot of times they are coming from deeper within, and sometimes they are practical pieces. So I want to kind of examine both of these together. And yeah, so I'm seeing, okay, a little bit of comments, people noticing in the Facebook Live, just yes, noticing that moment of no, that resistance. And then the practical side, someone is sharing having to turn their phone off notifications. And someone mentioning, Eliza mentioning that knowing this moment of no and resistance in other places, sitting with it and letting it be there, but not indulging it. Yeah, and in many ways, that is the optimum response. We acknowledge the moment of no, we see the resistance as it arises, and just acknowledging it and seeing it and making space and allowing it itself, that can be a lot of work, and that can take some practice to get into. Even if you've sat down and noticed that you're feeling a little bit of anxiety in meditation, as I know that's come up a couple times with people, that can be a form of resistance too. I don't have the time probably to go in really great detail about these different strategies of resistance and hindrances, but you get to know people can employ any strategy because we're really crafty deep down, but you often have your default strategies as well. You might be someone who is full of aversion and resistance in a more pushing away. I can't think of the right word for that, but where you can get angry, or you can kind of shut things down or be more reactive that way. Or it might be that you have the kind of craving hindrance of always kind of seeking pleasure or seeking something else, where you're kind of clinging to something else as a kind of aversion. Or it might be that you're numbing out and dissociating or disconnecting in some way. So there's a lot there that we could go into. But in any case, this is something you're likely to encounter in your meditation practice as well as in life. And what an opportunity it is to be able to work with it in your meditation practice. So from a really purely practical standpoint, let's take a moment to look at some of the obstacles. I'm going to share my screen now from the workbook here. Okay, so here's something I have in working with obstacles. These are a little bit more of the practical obstacles. So the first one, I don't have time. So and sometimes these connect to what we call the limiting beliefs. Limiting belief here would be like, I'm too busy. We talked about this a little bit yesterday too, the badge of honor that busyness can be. So while life does get busy and you might be juggling all kinds of things in your personal life, in your role as a caregiver for children or parents or other people, or in your work life, all kinds of things, right? So this is when making a small and realistic commitment can help, starting simple. So in some ways, we're returning to the very beginning where I mentioned both some of the myths, but also what makes it not stick in terms of how much kindness are you showing yourself, and how much are you able to prioritize yourself, and how much are you able to be realistic. That time that I talked about that in day 2. So keeping your time small and realistic, and also having the structure of reminders, whether it is on your phone, an alarm, whether it is the visual cues that you're kind of priming your environment to remind you to sit and practice. Or whether it is using something I call the bells of mindfulness, where you might kind of create your own language of symbols to remind you to show up and be present, something I mentioned yesterday in the Q&A as well. So this links to the next one, which is I forgot. Sometimes I hear this a lot. Oh, I meant to meditate today, but I forgot. This came up yesterday too. I think maybe Russell was saying, get through the day, and then you're like, oh, I forgot to meditate, and then just get up and sit down and do it, even for a short bit of time. I don't know if that was you saying that or not, but this, it happens. We're building a new habit. We're not used to it. It takes some getting used to. So having all those building blocks of the practical piece, the reminders, the visual cues, the contextual cues, the habit stacking, all these things we've talked about. Here I have a couple things like sticky notes in the bathroom mirror, or even creating a set schedule. Once you find a time that seems to work the best, then you kind of dedicate that time, and you make it so that this is what you do at this time. You show up in a slightly more automatic way. So another obstacle here is I don't know how to do it right. Remembering, of course, that there is no one right way, and giving yourself permission to explore and to remain curious, right? Softening any expectations you have, which is why I start with those myths, softening any ideas that you might completely silence your mind and find this pure, blissful void. And allowing the journey to unfold, right? As opposed to this destination, this expectation that we will arrive in a designated thing and then we'll know we're doing it right. Right? This idea that we have, sorry, I'm going through it more. We have this idea that we have this outcome we're looking for, and it's not right unless we're at the outcome. Instead, coming from within, remaining curious, observing the whole time. Another really common obstacle that comes up in meditation practice is I keep getting distracted. And this is something that we work with in meditation, knowing that we can't necessarily turn off the mind or the distractions, but we can make space for them, we can befriend them, and we can use them as an opportunity to return to the present. They can almost be bells of mindfulness themselves, the distractions in time. And I fell asleep. So this is a really common one too. This came up yesterday, but it was less of an obstacle and more of an observation. Opal was noticing that she was ending the meditation in sleep, but that it was nice. She was enjoying it. Often, and I have had patients who are just so exhausted, and they're meditating right before bed, and of course they're falling asleep. So you want to look at how much sleep are you getting? Do you just need more sleep? Are you choosing to meditate at a time when you're normally getting to sleep? And maybe you could try another time. And people often bookend their days, and I do this too, with a meditation either in the morning or the evening. But if sleepiness is an issue, you might try something in the middle of the day. And there's a lot of things you can do with your body, where you could do a standing, walking, or moving meditation. You can also meditate where you put, if you're lying down or sitting, you put like your hand or your arm up in the air and you just leave it there. So this requires just enough alertness to kind of, keep some wakefulness in the body as well. The last obstacle I have listed here is this doesn't work for me. This kind of goes into a deeper limiting belief aspect and a little bit of doubt. So if you're finding it doesn't work, maybe there are deeper limiting beliefs about not being able to do it, or about yourself or about meditation. I can't find this pure silence. This isn't working. Well, the issue might be that you're trying to find pure silence, right? So there can be a range of ways where you might feel like that or feel some doubt or some frustration, and try to continue to soften and to open, to notice as you explore. Always starting small and building up so that maybe the parts that work for you are little bite-sized chunks initially. All right, so those are some of the more practical obstacles and how they might relate. Have you experienced any of those so far as we've been sitting? Those are some common obstacles. Have you felt any of those in your meditation practice, or have you felt another obstacle, which I'm happy to take on and troubleshoot anything else that's come up for anyone? Things that have come up in the past that I didn't mention here that have been common are chronic pain and grief. Those are two things I've worked with quite a bit, especially as I work with chronic pain as an acupuncturist, and I work in hospice and palliative care, and I work with grief a lot. So those things can come up. And whatever obstacle, whatever your resistance is manifesting as, often all we can do is to make space and to recognize. That's the first part. You just are recognizing and acknowledging, this is coming up for me. This is what's arising. And then rather than reacting by pushing it away or covering it up, denying its existence, or rather than taking a chomp in there and getting your hooks in there, getting hooked in, getting really invested, or getting stuck in the story. Somewhere we're hoping to find a little middle ground and just make the space, often just with a little bit of allowing, it will start to shift. And your only job here again is just to observe and to notice, right? Without necessarily, can you make a little spaciousness even in your response, right? That's one of the questions. So, and I'm looking at a comment here of someone is experiencing, I think when my brain mind is on doing instead of being, that's when the blocks come up. And so it can come down to taking time for myself and taking hold of the time for me. Yes, so that's good. You're noticing that when you are too much in doing mode in your life, when your mind is so full, then those blocks can come up more. And this is, these things that arise, even pain and difficulties that arise, are often showing us parts of our lives that are needing a little more balance. So this is where mindfulness can go so much deeper into working with all the difficulties that we all face at some point in our lives, right? And if you have any other comments, please feel free to put them in there and I will respond, or we can talk about them, because often, your struggles, you're not alone in your struggles. This is like a universal experience, really. It might be unique to you, but a lot of other people do experience similar things. So some other limiting beliefs I have in here that sometimes I encounter is I can't sit still for 20 minutes. That's kind of a funny one. I see a smile here. I can't sit still for 20 minutes. But what about when you like watch TV or watch a movie? What about when you are in the car or on a train or whatever commute you may or may not have these days? Sometimes that is just a surfacey kind of resistance, an obstacle. And then you have to look a little deeper. What's really going on? And sometimes the limiting beliefs are, Tara Brach talks about limiting beliefs a lot, and she's a meditation teacher I follow closely. Fear beliefs, and they can be even a deeper sense of unworthiness or a fear of failure or just a fear of being with difficulty. And so there are times that meditation can help relieve or release some of these really constricted, limiting beliefs. Because when we sit with meditation, we are noticing what's arising, noticing resistance and obstacles, hopefully learning to create a little bit of space, both with our reaction too, and a lot of what's going on in our inner narrative as well. So here's a story that she tells as well. It's just a very short little story. So there's a gentleman who knocks on his son's door. Jamie, he says, "Wake up." And Jamie answers, "I don't want to get up, Papa." And the father shouts, "Get up. You have to go to school." And Jamie says, "I don't want to go to school." "And why not?" asks the father. "3 reasons," says Jamie. "First, because it's so dull. Second, the kids tease me. And third, I hate school." And the father says, "Well, I'm going to give you 3 reasons why you must go to school. First, because it's your duty. Second, because you're 45 years old. And third, because you're the headmaster." So just a kind of a funny story at the way that we can have these resistances that kind of keep perpetuating, even when we've really outgrown them. We linger in these internal dialogues and discussions and these beliefs, right? And they're sometimes built on like a wounding experience, an experience where we feel hurt or rejected, or we draw these conclusions like this is how it's always going to be, or I'm responsible, I'm at fault, right? And there's some kind of a belief that therefore starts to really constrict our experience of the world and of ourselves. And so hopefully through a consistent meditation practice, you can start to just see those, letting that be that first step. And maybe as we also practice some warmth and compassion, maybe there's another meditation teacher, Jeff Warren, who talks about, he has a great meditation called Welcome to the Party, where you welcome all your neuroses to the party, all your obstacles that come up, all your strategies of resistance, and that takes time to extend some warmth and compassion. That takes some practice. So if that doesn't come easily to you, that's perfectly natural. But hopefully in time, you learn to see, you hear some of the stories that might be real, but not necessarily true. And you hear some of what's coming up, and you notice the flavors of your own moment of no, your own strategies of resistance. You create a little spaciousness. Maybe you offer them some welcome, some warmth, because they are our teachers, right? They are teaching us how to be present, how to open up a little more. And you do this all within your own window of tolerance, within your own comfort level, respecting your own needs as you go, noticing when you are uncomfortable, when it's too much. Let's see. I think that's about everything. That was a lot of different things. I have another. So I guess one of the other things that can come up is I feel silly. For example, in the loving kindness practice, that can come up where it might not feel as smooth or natural. It might feel kind of awkward. I don't know what I'm doing. That kind of comes back to the sense that there's a right way. And that's something that generally does loosen up a little bit as you rest into the practice more. So starting small, keeping it simple, noticing what's going on, what's arising, doing your best to make space and be compassionate with yourself for what's arising. And then, just trusting in that why and that who, right? What you're seeking and who you want to become. Trusting in the process and the practice itself, letting yourself just be present in the journey time and time again. One question in the Zoom chat: who was the person you just mentioned who has the welcome to the party? That was, I believe, Jeff Warren, who's kind of a more humorous meditation teacher. It's always nice to have a little levity, a little humor in there too. So I think we should do a practice. And we're going to do a little bit of a practice and then I will let you all go. And this is it for me. I hope that this has given you lots of tools to continue to show up for yourself in your meditation practice. Remember that I'm here every Thursday at 9 a.m. on the Facebook Live. So I will be here this week on Thursday. That'll be the next time I go live. And that 3 times a year, I offer my 6-week program, which is also until Wednesday and starts in February. So if you're feeling ready to practice confronting these obstacles, your resistance, and that can be helpful to do with a little extra support and personal support and accountability, let me know. That's part of why I do the program rather, so that we can get a little deeper in with some of these issues. And the only other thing I'll be sending out to you is any information that you need or any questions you've had for me, which I'm still available for that kind of thing. Or I do have a feedback form that I like to send out so that I can hear how your experience of the retreat was and anywhere that I can improve. So I had one question for you now, which is, in my mind, I want to make it short and simple for you and keep it to 30 minutes, but it never quite seems to happen for me. So my question is, either I kind of take some content out to slim it down a little bit so that I can keep it short for people, or I let it be longer, like 45 minutes, and just to tell people so they expect. So that's one of my things that I'm thinking of for the future. One question on the Facebook Live here, Barbara is asking, do you have to sign up for the Thursdays? No, you don't. You just join me here on Thursdays. It's just in the live. I don't do the Zoom because that gets a little complicated. And Bernie's saying, let it be longer. Just let people know. And Rosalind's also saying 45 minutes. Okay. Do the meditation 9:30 and continue after. Yeah, I know. I could try to do something like that where I try to put the meditation in a little earlier. That's something I might do. All right, so here it is 9:30 and we're going to sit and do the meditation now. If you are joining me on Zoom, you can go ahead and turn off your camera, remain unmuted. And we'll go ahead. I invite you to find a comfortable position and start to settle in. And noticing what it's like to settle into your meditation. Finding a balanced posture between that alert, upright energy and that softening, restful ease. As you come into your posture and you take your seat, you might close your eyes if that's available to you, or soften your gaze. And just notice what it's like, what shifts as you're settling into meditation. Allow yourself to anchor into the moment, perhaps in the body or in the breath. Noticing here, where do you go first? Where does your awareness alight? Even in this week of sitting with me, you may have already developed your own preferences or tendencies. And so I often begin by anchoring in the body and breath. And so that's what I'll offer now. As you start to shift your attention inwards, you might just become aware of yourself sitting or lying. And sit and know you're sitting. But also, how do you know you're sitting? What are the sensations in your body or the experience in your mind? What is the knowing of sitting? It might be the experience from within, what we call a felt sense of the pressure in your pelvis, in your sit bones. Maybe you feel the sense of gravity. Feeling your feet or your legs on the ground. Noticing the touch points of the body, points of contact, the feet, the pelvis, the hands. Can you soften just a little more? Maybe you feel those connection points with the ground. You feel the ground softening and receiving you. Noting whatever's arising for you, what sensations are coming up in the body. Doing a light scan of the body for any tension, inviting it to soften. And as you settle in, taking some refuge in the practice, in this ability to rest in the moment. And the sensations that are arising for you, be they pleasant or unpleasant, can you create a little bit of spacious allowing? Perhaps even extending a little bit of warmth as you welcome them to the party. And as we anchor into the body, feel into the fullness of your body. Can you connect to the side body and the back body? If there are any areas where it's difficult to connect with, you might try inviting the breath into those areas. Let your attention widen to include the flow of breath. The breath in its ability to enliven this pneuma, this spirit. Noting the sensations of breath, noting the qualities of your breath. How is it to be here in your body in this moment in time? When the mind wanders, return your attention to the breath or to the body, to the connection to the ground. Maybe noting where it's easiest to connect with the breath, whether you feel it at your nostrils, in your chest rising and falling, or the movement of the belly and abdomen, or maybe you feel the whole body breathing. Allow yourself to rest into it. And if you are experiencing a busy mind or a busy body, noting many things arising for you, can you give them a seat at the table, offer them some space, pour them a glass of tea or wine or water? And we can do this with the use of language, saying just this to whatever is arising in the body or mind. It might be you're meeting some resistance or some obstacles, and you say just this to them as well. Just this distraction, just this busyness, just this restlessness, just this pain, just this grief. Not only the difficult experiences, maybe the pleasant ones too, just this resting, just this softening, just this tingling, whatever is arising. If you find yourself pushing away, denying, or hooking into and clinging, try to invite a little more space, a little more warmth into what's happening within. And as you might open your eyes and reorient to the space around you, staying present and mindful, noticing what it's like to conclude the meditation. Noticing what it's like to go back into the busy stream of our daily lives. Noticing how you feel now. Letting yourself move if you need to move. I often need to move my shoulders, my sides. And can you take some of that spacious allowing, that sense of presence, wakefulness, some of that warmth and compassion with you beyond the cushion, beyond the meditation chair? Can you let it integrate deeply into you so that it continues a little more into your life today? And so everyone's quiet. Thank you for joining me. This has been a lovely retreat. I enjoy leading it very much. This path to presence. Hoping you feel much more present than even a week ago when we first started. And I'm seeing one question on this Zoom chat about positioning of the body. What is the purpose in having the hips or the pelvis? Well, the hips aren't higher than the pelvis because the hips are part of the pelvis. But they're you having this tilt in your pelvis so that they're higher than your legs, right? So it's just to make it more comfortable, because we are being immobile for a little while, and again, the purpose isn't to be uncomfortable. But as I tried to bring in today, the sense of really resting into it, and whatever is arising, trying to trust in this practice and the process. If more questions of that nature or other natures come up, you can reach out to me, and I look forward to seeing some of you in the 6-week program and seeing some of you on the Thursday mornings and getting any feedback that you have in the future as well. And hope to be able to continue to support you in your practices. So thank you, everyone. Awesome job. Yay. All right. Be well.